Okay. This land is his land, from the masterpiece of Dr. Marcus Savage's Trickle Up Poverty. As I write, Obama czars are eyeing one of the largest federal land grabs in history. Their target? That depends. A confidential internal government document stamped "not for release" somehow found the light of day. In it, Obama's henchmen identified 14 sites in 9 states, spanning millions of acres, primarily in the West. With the stroke of a pen, bypassing both public and congressional consent, Obama's plans to designate thousands of square miles as national monuments. This Soviet-style mandate, by fiat, would prohibit any development of millions of acres, rich in timber, clean, cool, gold and minerals, natural gas, and other vital resources. Translation: states and local governments will lose jobs and tax revenues. Can Obama do that? Can Barack the Buccaneer use the powers of government to shut down the natural resources of individual states? Technically speaking, yes. Hide behind the Antiquities Act, this president, who promised an open and transparent government, can use his executive power to hijack and yank the land out from underneath a state and turn it into a national monument in the name of conservation. As you well know, this seizure of property deprives ranchers, miners, and others in the energy development business the opportunity to make a living. How will they support themselves when energy production, ranching, and the mining grind to a halt? What does Comrade Obama think they'll do for work? Become community organizers? The pirating of public land has been done before, most notably by Bill Clinton in 1996. Bill Clinton took a break from getting Lewinsky in the Oval Office long enough to place 1.3 million acres in southern Utah to a federal lockbox, permanently making the land off limits to current or future exploration and development. Almost a decade later, the people of Utah are still furious, and upon hearing about Obama's plans, have further reason to distrust and fear the government. Gary Wilcox, a resident of Utah, remembers what went down the last time around. Quote, "I keep thinking about what President Clinton did to us. Came in here, snuck in here, did the land grab. I can see that happening right now." Unquote. Obama's land grab by the feds is another example of what he must have been thinking when he announced, quote, "We are going to roll up our sleeves, and we are going to remake this country, block by block, neighborhood by neighborhood, country by country, state by state. Remake the country." By the looks of how he's operating, Obama's real agenda is to take over the country acre by acre. Some 200 years ago, James Madison, the fourth president of the United States, warned about the kind of intrusion on freedom and liberty currently under review by the 44th president. Madison said, quote, "Since the general civilization of mankind, I believe there are more instances of the abridgment of the freedom of the people by gradual and silent encroachment of those in power than by violent and sudden usurpations." Isn't that precisely what Obama's Leninist-like behavior is doing? Behind closed doors, out of public scrutiny, he is orchestrating another silent encroachment against the people of this republic. He's been very careful to do this dirty work behind the scenes rather than resort to the violence Madison mentioned, at least for now. But one has to wonder what the trust purpose has to wonder what the true purpose of Obama's proposed militia may ultimately be. Or did you hear about that one? Unless you were listening to my show at the time, you're probably in the dark. Maybe 2 newspapers reported this statement. Here's what the Leninist wannabe said in the early days of a campaign stop in Colorado Springs, Colorado. It goes like the quote: "We cannot continue to rely on our military in order to achieve the national security objectives we've set. We've got to have a civilian national security force that's just as powerful, just as strong, just as well funded." Emphasis added. Don't we already have a National Guard? Don't we already have the FBI, DEA, TSA, park rangers, state troopers, sheriffs, and local cops in all 50 states? What's the man talking about? Is he working toward the creation of a political state? The fact of the matter is that Obama's plan to create some sort of domestic army is just as powerful as our military is reminiscent of a certain German in the 1930s who had his own brown shirts. Or have you forgotten that world leaders down through the ages have created their version of a national security force? Remember the KGB, the Gestapo, and the Praetorian Guard? Look, I know this might sound far-fetched, but wasn't it Obama's pal and high-impact czar, Ron Bloom, who said, we kind of agree with Mao Zedong that power comes largely from the barrel of a gun? There you have it. What more do you need? This Leninist Marxist administration turns to Chairman Mao, the butcher of China, an evil dictator responsible for the deaths of more than 60 million people, for inspiration. The more we learn about Obama, the more we see he envisions an oligarchy, not a democracy. This land grab by the federal feds is causing the people to brace for tyranny. They know only the people can stop it. I'm afraid there's very little time left. Next title is called The People Speak Up, which I'll read another tape.